Hello and welcome to another episode of The Other Side of Sales. I'm Kasey Jones.
And I'm Ashleigh.
And I am ridiculously excited because we have the great and powerful Morgan Ingram on with us. Welcome, Morgan.
All right, the intros are fire already from the get-go. Let's get it.
I was gonna say I'm just bored. I'm like, oh God, it's Morgan again.
No, okay.
Everyone's sick of me.
First, those of you that don't know, I'd be really, really shocked if you don't know. Morgan is the Director of Sales Execution and Evolution at JB Sales. He is host of the SDR Chronicles, which we were also going to talk about. He was a LinkedIn top sales voice in 2018 and 2019, and he does prospecting training for the top companies in the world, and like literally the world, flies all over the place to train companies and train sales reps on how to prospect really freaking well. So to kick things off, since Morgan, you are going to be the first episode of our themed month of the use of video in sales, I want you to tell us a little bit about the SDR Chronicles. It is what you really became known for in such an early way. You were so early on the video train. And from the jump, you had this unique perspective. And as we joked about before we hit record, you are really an open book, and you've been like vulnerable and really honest in ways that most people, especially dudes in sales and especially young guys in sales, because you started it when you were a freaking baby, and you were so transparent and honest about like the things you were learning and the things that you were trying and failing at. And it was something that was like so ridiculously refreshing, and it kind of took our industry by storm. And we're super big fans of it, but like, give us the backstory. Like, what made you decide to do this? How did you have the balls to do it? And how did you stay so freaking consistent?
Yeah, so we'll take it back to the first time I ever made a video on social media was in 2014 on Facebook. And I had, before then, had been studying personal brand, and a lot of that came from The Rock, who's, you've probably seen him in movies.
Love him.
Best. Like, if I met The Rock, that's probably one of the few people I'd faint, like, for real. Like, there's not a lot of people I'd faint for, but like, The Rock, I'd be like, yo.
He'd catch you, and he wouldn't make you feel bad that you just fainted.
I know. That's 100% going to be one day. So I grew up watching WWE, saw the wrestling, WWF, all that stuff, and I noticed that he built a brand. There's an argument that you could say he wasn't the best wrestler, but he had the best brand when he was in the WWE, which obviously transcended to him being in movies, and it's crazy. So the whole thing is, that's where I got all that idea from. And so I made that first Facebook video to put myself out there because I knew video was a way to relate to people in an easier way. And I'm not the best writer, but I knew I could get on video and expel my emotion to the audience. So that first video was about reading. I'm a huge reader, and I was talking about how I learned a lot from this book I was reading at the time, which was called The Law of Success. And from there, I just consistently made videos on Facebook, and that grew into a thing. Then I went into Periscope, which, if you guys have ever heard of Periscope, that's live streaming. So I did 3 live streams every single day for 4 months. So it was like during the summer, just to practice videos, because I just knew it was gonna be big one day. And then took that, and then now I went into just a YouTube channel, like motivational YouTube channel. I had a couple videos there, didn't really go that far. And then I took a step back, and I realized that my videos were hype and everyone was excited, but they had no substance in them because there was no skill that you could learn from them. It was just like, oh, that was exciting, I'm hyped, but then there was nothing you could take action on moving forward. And so that's where sales development came into play. So I knew that being an SDR was going to be unique because there was no content at the time from sales development leaders or SDRs that was in video format on LinkedIn. There was no YouTube channel. So I was like, this is a good opportunity for me. And where I saw it from was Ralph Barcy. He wrote a blog post about, hey, if an SDR made content, that person would be great. And so I hit Ralph on Twitter before I was even an SDR, before I even got accepted to the job. I was like, hey, I'm going to be the SDR who makes this YouTube channel. And he was like, yeah, okay. And so I don't think he thought I was going to do it. And then 4 months later, after I got in the SDR role, I went to Rainmaker. I remember it clearly, 2016, first sales conference I've ever been to. And the keynote was Gary Vaynerchuk. And he did his normal spill, but what he said at the end just hit me in the heart. And that's when I knew I needed to do what I needed to do, because he said, hey, look, all of you guys in the room need to start building brands. So this is like 2016, right? All of you guys need to start building brand. And if you're not paying attention to it, you should. And everyone was like, whatever. And he was like, half of you guys are going to listen to me and do something the next day. But he said, only 100 of you are going to stay consistent for probably a month. He said, probably only 20 of you are going to stay consistent for 6 months. And he said, only 1 or 2 of you are going to stay consistent for a year. And only 1 of you are going to do this and see success. And that like hit me, because I was like, all right, I'm going to be the one. Like that was like my whole goal. And so I talked to Gary after. I was like, I'm doing this. He's like, that sounds awesome. Just make sure you document. Don't try to be like a guru or something. Like you're only 23 years old. So just document what you're doing and people will appreciate that. So that night I created the SDR Chronicles, hit up some people on Fiverr, created a logo, brought out my 10 episodes that night. And that's the story. That's how I started.
I freaking love it. And I love that you followed his recommendation of documenting. So one of my favorite things about, what is it? Killing It? Where he
Crushing it.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Where he talks about, eating dirt.
Yeah.
I love this analogy where he talks about how when he was like a teenager before he was legal to drink, and he knew he was going to be inheriting his like family wine business. And he knew that like when he would watch things or read things about wine, people would be like, oh, has the afternote of dirt or pebbles or whatever. And so he was like, well, I can't drink the wine and understand what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah.
So I'm going to eat dirt. So I know what dirt tastes like, so that by the time I can drink it, like I'll be able to taste these things.
Yeah.
And he talks about how he would just absolutely kill if he had known when he was 18 that he should be documenting him eating dirt, because probably no one would have given a damn on YouTube then.
Right.
But 10 years later, when he was like a successful business person and he went back and then showed like all of the work that he put in to get there and all of the things that he tried and that made him look like an idiot and that he failed at, like all of that would have been like one of his most powerful stories. And that has just like always stuck with me, the eating dirt analogy.
Yeah,
so
he's crazy.
I love, none of your documenting of what you were doing was quite that extreme. But I love that you took that, because that's the thing that made everybody resonate with what you were doing, is that you were really, really transparent about the stuff you were learning. And it wasn't always like, oh, look, I got it. I know everything. And I think as a sales industry, we have a tendency to want to make it look like we know what the hell we're doing, when even when we're good, we're always still experimenting and we're always still trying things. And guess what? Some of the time it's going to fall flat. And that's actually a good thing to share, because that's how we learn.
Yeah. And I just got to say, like, I got on board with the SDR Chronicles when one of my SDRs, I was a manager, showed me a video, and I apologize. I even tried to find it before we did this interview to see if I could find it, but I couldn't figure it out. But it was a video you recorded after like a bad day or a long day or something. You're like, you know what? I don't have a lot of advice today. Today just kind of sucked. But here's what I'm going to do to make tomorrow better. And I was like, okay, I like this kid. Because this is reality. There are going to be days that just kind of suck. And it's about having that mentality to, okay, today sucked, let it go, come back. And I think you were one of the first people to really embrace that humanity, especially in the sales development role where everything was put in the numbers, crush it, get the meeting, all that stuff. You were the first person, at least I was aware of, that was like, yeah, there's that component, but there's a lot of stuff along the way. So that's been really cool. So my question is, you said you spent all this time on Periscope and these other things, which I am not nearly cool enough to remember or have used. I remember hearing about these things and going, that's nice, children.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Like I barely know what Twitch is now. And there's some Snapchat. I don't know. I barely use LinkedIn and like Instagram, but like, how do you get good at video beyond just like doing it? Like, even if you're doing it, like, how do you know what makes a good video and what makes a not good video when it's just you looking at it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So to go back to the Periscope and the Facebooks, how I got great at it is I was just doing it over and over and over again. But what I also did is I studied at what was considered great. So at the time, you could go on YouTube and figure out who are the top YouTubers, who are the top Periscopers. And I would just hop on and be like, okay, why do people like this person, right? And so I would look at the people in the comments and they'd be like, okay, boom, 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 they're commenting. And what I would do is I'd reach out to those people, the audience, and I was like, why do you like this person? Why do you watch their videos? Like, what about them is compelling? And so I took all that information from people in the comments, because that's the audience, right? I don't care what the person making the video says. They're making the videos. I want to care what the audience says, because without the audience, you're not relevant. So once I got the data from them, I was like, oh, okay, that's what makes things relevant. And then what I also did is I watched a lot of music videos, that are like high views. And I realized a lot of those that have high views, normally they're more open, they tell a story, etc. So I realized, okay, to be great at videos, you got to be able to tell a story. You got to be willing to be open. You have to be crisp with your points. You can't be all over the place. And also at the end of the day, it has to be something actionable. That's something that somebody can do. Because if I'm just telling you about like, hey, you should provide value on a video, you're going to be like, all right, provide value. I've heard that 1,000 times. But if I tell you how to do it, and I'm very open about it, and I can tell you a story, and I'm relatable, or I have an experience about it, that's where I was able to get great at video in terms of the content. Because selling via video, that's a whole different conversation, right? But in terms of like the content creation, that's where I realized video came into play. And ultimately, it was being myself. That is the biggest failure that most people have. They want to be Gary Vaynerchuk. They want to be, I want to be John Barrows on video, right? Or I want to go be all these other people that are out there, and you're not going to be able to be those people, and you're going to falter because people are going to see you as a clone. So at the end of the day, I just knew, hey, look, this is my style. This is how I deliver it. I got to make sure that it's concise. It makes sense. But at the same time, what I realized is that you have to be yourself in that to make sure that people can relate to you, because people are going to be able to sniff you out regardless.
Okay, I have to quote The Rock here, because I don't know, did you see Fighting with My Family?
No, I haven't seen that movie.
Okay, it's actually pretty legit.
Okay.
But to quote The Rock in that movie, he's giving advice to the young wrestlers. And he says, don't try and be the next Rock, be the first you.
Yeah.
Yep. And this is a balance though that I think a lot of people miss, is the becoming obsessed with the community that you serve and still staying true to yourself. And it's those two things that are really going to make the difference. And I think that oftentimes people will focus on one and not the other.
Yeah.
And I mean, and this is true, like in the marketing world too, like it's amazing to me how often you'll talk to a founder who's like just obsessed with their own product, and they know to squat about the people that are buying it. And it's like, no. Yeah. You like literally need to become obsessed with these people.
Yeah.
Because that's how you're going to figure out how to talk to them and how to serve them and how to add value. And the same is true when you are creating content. Understanding how to stay true to yourself, but also package it in a way that like really resonates for your audience becomes so much more simple.
Mm-hmm.
if you really understand what drives those people in the first place, right?
Exactly.
But I think it's yeah, I mean, it's always really interesting, and I think you would have a similar sort of reaction to this. It's funny. It's like the content that you put out where you've like really thought through it, and you think that you've like scientifically put this thing together that's going to be so perfect. That's the shit that totally like, you know,
flops.
That literally has happened to me this week twice.
Yes.
Twice. Like, this isn't gonna be fire, and it's like 2 likes, and I'm like, no.
And the stuff where like I finally like this week I got yet another person reaches out to me in direct message and spells my name with a C, and I am super annoyed, and I post on LinkedIn, like, it really never ceases to amaze me how many people reach out to me on LinkedIn. My name is right there and they misspell it. And like, holy moly, it's like 20,000 views within a few hours. And I'm like, okay, God damn it. So there's this weird balance of, yeah, like getting obsessed with the people that you serve and what they care about and what they like, but also, I mean, shooting from the hip in a way that is really super, super genuine, so that someone, because to both of your points, there is nobody else that can do that. No one.
No.
There's something special about that.
Absolutely. And even right now, it's also understanding how you're growing in your journey as well.
Oh,
that's a big piece, is that when if you go back and watch the first video, like, it was a MacBook like 2016 that was like not that great, and there's no lighting, there's no mic that I have now, the editing is terrible. And the thing is, I always wanted to show people that you don't have to have a studio to be relevant and to bring value to the marketplace. Because I knew in the beginning, hey, look, it's just not going to be incredible. Like, now, obviously, there's more things that I have added into it. I have the lights, I have more things. I got a camera that I bought, like, cool. But in the beginning, like, I didn't have any of that. And I think you have to stay true to yourself, because people will really appreciate you in that beginning, because you didn't try to put yourself in this incredible light in the beginning, and just instead of being like, yo, I'm learning how to edit, I'm making these videos, but it makes it relatable to people, because they're like, he's at least he's doing what he should be doing, or she's doing what she should be doing. And you figure it out along the way. And that is the key part that people miss, is people want to see the growth of your journey. They don't want you to come out and be the all-star in the beginning, because nobody is. And you can look at every great person. Nobody came on the scene and was like, yep, first team he got on, championship, all-star. Like, that never happens. And I think people forget that.
My first video that went viral on LinkedIn, there's no edits. I just recorded it in one take.
Yeah.
I had my phone resting against my computer monitor on a stack of Post-its.
Yeah.
And I pushed that record button with my finger, like, and like, that's the thing. That's always when I'm talking to people and they're like, how do I do video? Like, what equipment do I need? And I'm like, don't start there.
You're not ready for the equipment.
Not ready.
They're
Don't
not ready.
go get a freaking green screen when you've never recorded a video. Like, it's not needed. Like, just start talking to people and just start sharing something that means something to you, and like, people will really connect.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so I am curious. So, okay, because recording video for like content on LinkedIn and for sharing and becoming kind of a thought leader is a totally different ballgame from video for sales.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what the difference is, and what some salespeople who maybe haven't tried it, or they've tried it a bit, but they are feeling like it's probably kind of awkward and not working. Like, what are some of the tips that you can give them on how to get started with actually using video for prospecting, especially now?
Yeah. So the difference is that you're not as high quality, and it's not going to be as putting yourself out there, because when you're doing content from that thought leadership standpoint, whatever, you're presenting on points that are happening in your journey, things that you're experiencing. And as you evolve, you'll have different stuff. Like I have a camera, I have lighting, I have a mic, right? These are things that I have, but I'm not going to do a camera video for a prospect, right? That's just not happening. So the thing is that you just normally have higher quality of set at the end of the day with that thought leadership, etc. And also the content is more so focused on, well, it depends what you're trying to do, but the content more so is focused on your expertise, your skills, and what you're giving to the marketplace. When you're doing your video selling, that more so is, hey, how can I bring value to somebody else? That's, hey, how can we solve a problem for them, right? And so the key factor here is less than 90 seconds is what your video should be. So the best way to think about it is when you're selling and you're doing your prospecting. Let's talk about video prospecting. You need to think about it as a movie trailer. Most people watch a movie trailer before they go watch the movie. If the movie trailer is trash, I'm probably not going to watch it, right? Or if a friend refers me and says, yo, go check that out, I will, which is referrals, right? That's another prospecting. But if the movie trailer isn't appealing to me, I'm not going to move forward to the next step. So the video is in the sales process on the top of the funnel is the same thing. It's a movie trailer. And if your movie trailer is spot on, you'll move to the movie, which is the discovery call and the sales cycle, because you tell that story that leads to the close. Then the close leads to Toy Story 2, Toy Story 3. That's like the cross-sell, upsell, right? Like if you think about it that way, it's like that makes a ton of sense. So not less than 90 seconds. Most trailers are less than 90 seconds. So the next step is, how do you do that? So there's two ways. One, go to LinkedIn. LinkedIn videos are great right now. I use my mobile phone. I don't do anything crazy. Or if you want to do it via LinkedIn, the desktop or the laptop, you can use Drift Video, Loom, Vidyor. There's a ton out there, right? The other avenue is through email. All right. So those are the two ways. Now let's talk about let's go back to LinkedIn. The formula that I tell people to follow, super simple. It's 4 steps. The first part is saying the reason for my video. Now, this is, people lose this step because they want to hop into like, yo, what's up? My name's Morgan. I'm from this company. Like, this isn't a time to just be hanging out like you're talking to your friend. Like, this is a future client. So you can't act the same way based on that other content we're talking about, which is that thought leadership stuff. So come in with the reason for my video is. That states for that prospect, you're reaching out with a reason. And then for me, I now have a reason that I'm reaching out. And if I don't have a reason, just like John says, don't reach out. That makes no sense. The second part is 2-pronged. One is the trigger. So that means I've gone to your LinkedIn. I've gone to your website. Maybe I saw something on your YouTube page, an interview, or a problem that is you're currently going through as a buyer based on the current climate. There's certain things that you might be going through. I know sales leaders, it's motivation and inspiration for their reps. It's hitting quota. It's up-leveling their skills. Okay, those are things I know are happening regardless of what position that you're in. Then the solution. What solution helps that problem or is complementary to that trigger that you found? And then the last part is a call to action. So it's a collaborative call to action. So all that is you're saying open to learning more, or are you interested in a deeper dialogue? Does this align with your priorities? It's not that aggressive. It's very frictionless, is what they're called, frictionless call to actions. So then it acts that it's on your behalf, it's in your shoes, and then it's not that aggressive. So, hey, this is the reason for my video. Here is what I found, a trigger, or it's a problem that we are talking to clients about. Then here's the solution that then helps, and then here's that call to action. And so you do that less than 90 seconds on LinkedIn video, and that's key. Now, here's the part that people miss, all right? You got to smile. I'll tell you how many people don't smile in their videos, and then they look like Snape, they look like a Grouch, and it's like, yo, no one, the Grinch, like no one's going to open your video if you look like these things, right? So make sure you smile, look presentable, because if you don't, that means that's not a person I want to work with if you're frowning. So make sure that you're smiling. And then a key element as well, make sure that you just have a nice background. I'm not saying you don't need a green screen. You don't need a studio. Just make sure you're in a white background, like something that's behind me, or make sure that you're in a good, well-lit area. You're not in the dark. And so that's what I would do there in terms of LinkedIn. The same thing I just said applies to video. And then if you want higher open rates in terms of subject lines, it would be their first name. So if I was sending a video to Kasey, it'd be Kasey. And then I use the greater than, less than sign, Morgan. And then I'd have like a hyphen. And then it's a quick video for you to let you know that it's a quick video, not a long video, because you want to clarify that. And that's how I go about video. And that's how I personally use it. That's how other reps use it. And that's how they're successful. So that's the long drawn out formula there, but that's how you should go about it.
Boom. Brilliant.
I'm already in my head. I'm like, okay, I've got these 3 prospects I identified today. So what's the trigger? I'm already like scripting in my head.
Yeah, I know. And then it's repeatable because you can keep going. You can keep going, and it allows you to plug and play. It's not something that you have to personalize every single time. It's a repeatable process that can be done continuously.
I heard you guys speak at okay, so this is funny. So actually I heard you and John speak at Sales Hacker. I think it was 2018.
Okay.
Which was actually, ironically enough, the same conference that Kasey, you and I met at in the ladies' room.
Field talk.
Yep.
Yeah. Magical moments.
Yep. Magical moments in the ladies' room. And I one of my favorite things from that, you guys were talking about alignment and training and stuff like that. But one of my favorite kind of truth bombs that John dropped was you can't personalize at scale, but you can target. Mm-hmm. I think people vastly underestimate the amount of time that personalization takes, and the return on investment for that time isn't always where it needs to be, depending on your sale and a bunch of other stuff. But that's what I love about repeatable formulas like that. It's like, okay, let's start with something really simple that you can personalize that in 20 seconds?
Yeah.
And have it be impactful versus having to go into a deep dive on somebody's LinkedIn and figure out what their hobbies are and how many kids they have.
Yeah, exactly. Going too much research.
Yeah, no stalking necessary.
And not only that, and this is actually something that I think John has been talking about on LinkedIn quite a bit, that falls flat a lot. Like, It is so awkward when you get a message where it's like, hey, big fan of the college you went to, immediately into a pitch. And you're like, okay, dude, it took you 5 seconds to find that on my LinkedIn. That doesn't actually mean anything. There's no real connection in it. It's like such a sham version of personalization.
Yeah.
It also always makes me laugh because most of the time I get that is when somebody also misspells my name on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Oh, see,
it aligns.
I'm actually really lucky because I went to Santa Clara University. And Santa Clara University is known for having or at least we used to, I have no idea. I don't follow these things, but we used to have a really good basketball team. And now we have a good soccer team, I think. I don't follow college sports at all. I went to this school. I didn't go to a single sports event in 4 years. I had no life outside of the music department. It was pathetic. But it always cracks me up because I think Steve Nash was the name of the guy. Don't quote me, and I apologize to anyone else who went to SCU and knows this stuff, or if I'm getting this guy's name wrong. It's this really good player who went to SCU and then ended up having a great NBA career. I get at least 2 or 3 emails a year saying, also a huge fan of this guy. Because they think because I went to the school, I'm a fan of this basketball player. I'm like, I don't care. Watching the Michael Jordan documentary right now, and I'm like, yeah, I don't understand basketball at all. They're talking about short guards, and I'm like, I remember Dennis Rodman in the wedding dress.
Yeah.
It cracks me up. It's like you just spent all that time, and you just whiffed it.
Whiffed it.
Hairball, or whatever the basketball analogy would be. Okay,
airball. I got you.
Airball. There we go. So,
not hairball.
Yeah, that's something that's way over there.
Yeah, that's a whole different conversation. All right, so let's switch gears slightly because you just dropped I feel like the ultimate guide to both, and I appreciate that context between kind of the brand building video and sales email.
For sure.
So you talked a little bit about how video was really integral in your early career in sales, but I think one thing that's really interesting and that I haven't heard a lot about is how did you even get into this?
Yeah. So like most people, it wasn't where I came out of college, like, I want to be in sales. Like, that's exactly where I want to go. Like, it wasn't even the case. I never wanted to be in it at all. I thought it was slimy, and I thought it was people who were just like high energy and just lied to each other. And I was like, that's not what I wanted to do. So I graduated with sports management and finance. So I wanted to be a sports agent. I saw Jerry Maguire. I was like, yo, this is awesome. This is what I want to go do. That was me. So I changed my entire tone when I graduated, because with finance, massively boring, not my people, I feel like that was a massive death trap for me. People might love finance. I just went in the internship and I was like, this is not for me. And most of my friends that went to finance jobs are ironically now in sales. So it's funny how that happens. Then sports management, ticket sales, you get like no money. You get like peanuts. And I was like, that's not happening. And then being a sports agent, they were like, you got to go to law school. And I saw how much that costs. And I was like, yeah, no one has that money. So the next thing I would decide to do is like, okay, what's the next move? So most people don't know this. I told my parents after I graduated, I was like, hey guys, I know I got this double major and I told y'all are going to be a sports agent, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go be a public speaker. They were like, yo, what are you talking about? How are you just going to go be a public speaker? I was like, nope, I'll figure it out. Don't worry about it. So I started studying public speaking. I watched all the graduation speeches. I watched commencement speeches. I watched keynote speeches and studied the styles of how people did public speaking and how they communicated. And I started going out and doing free public talks. So my first talk was in a gym locker room for like a high school team. And so I started developing my skills from there, created a website, did everything. And it took a while to get off the ground, but then I started getting paid to speak. But over time, I was living with my parents and I felt like I wasn't making enough money. So that's when I decided, all right, I heard sales, you can make money. I'll bite the bullet and I'll figure this out. Went to a local event in Atlanta. Someone told me, yo, there's this company that got funding. You should probably hit them up. And I was like, okay. I found the number. I cold called the VP of sales. That cold call was dreadful. I don't even know why they even let me in. It's probably because I just made the cold call, because they were like, no one's done this before, so you should probably just check them out, right? Did the interview, and I interviewed for an SDR position. Now, the interesting part about that is I interviewed for AE positions before because I saw the SDR position. I was like, that sounds like a waste of time. Like, why would I just only prospect? That sounds boring. I just wanted to close stuff and make money. I got rejected for all the AE roles, had to humble myself and be like, okay, I got to go be an SDR. When I got into the SDR role, I was terrible. I sucked, and I had to figure out, like, how the heck am I going to be good at this? And that's when I had a lot of conversations with my reps that were there, that were in the same seat as me, and just having a lot of heart-to-hearts with my leader about how I can get better. And, a lot of people stepped up and coached me and helped me to get me the understanding of how to do sales development. And so that's how I got
let me ask a question.
Yeah.
What were like the 3 things you struggled with?
One was cold calling. I was not good at cold calling at all. I was terrible.
Were you too passive? Were you too over? Did you just get flustered?
Too hype. I was talking way too fast, like way faster than I normally do now. I've been able to pace it out, but I talked way too fast. I wasn't listening, and I didn't memorize my intros and my value props. I just was reading from the script. So I sounded way off base, if people could tell that. 2 was I wasn't organized. So I was all over the place. And then 3, I didn't ask for feedback, and I didn't execute on feedback that I got. And I acted like I knew everything, but obviously I didn't. So that was like the hardest thing for me, because I was coming from creating a personal brand off of public speaking and doing it right out of college. And then I also, at Periscope, I was one of the top people in Periscope. So going from that to being in this SDR role, like, bothered me a little bit, because I couldn't grasp it like all the other stuff I had been grasping before.
I'm just sitting here because I feel like very few people come into sales or come into the SDR role and immediately have success. So yeah. Thank you for being honest about where you struggle, because everybody hits that. Everybody's got their strong points and their weak points, and just for context, like, I was pretty good on the phone,
Yeah.
I established rapport pretty easily. I also talked way too fast. But for me, it was all the business acumen. That took me forever to really figure out, like understanding, why budgets got held up and what it meant when people said things were, road mapped and whatever. That just took me forever with my non-finance degrees.
Yeah.
Well, I think, look, and this is one of the reasons why I think you've built such a powerful brand. And I think, one of the things I admire about you, Morgan, and I think you and I have talked a little bit about, is your desire to make an impact. And you've had this ability. It is very rare to see somebody who is as confident as you are and still so transparent about the things that are hard and the things and your journey of how you had to get here. And the fact that, let's be honest, the journey ain't far from over, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that, and that's why I pointed it out in the beginning, like when you started the SDR Chronicles, you were really honest about what was working and what wasn't, and what was easy and what was hard, in a way that was really, really rare for a, good-looking, charming, young sales guy. Most of the time, the people that are like you are the ones that are like, oh no, like, I got it. It takes a while. It usually takes many of us until our later 20s, when frankly life has kicked us in the gut a few times before we're able to be like, oh, like, I don't have it all figured out. I don't have to be so cocky about this. It turns out when I am cocky about it, I'm not fooling anybody. And so it's just super refreshing. And I think it's my hunch, and I want to know if I'm right on this, that part of the reason why you've been able to do this is because I know a big part of what drives you is your desire to have an impact on others. And you can't have an impact on others, not really, if the only thing you talk about is what's easy. And so I'm curious, like, is it that motivation that helps you be humble and vulnerable and honest about the things that a lot of us really struggle to be humble, vulnerable, and honest about?
So I saw a quote and it said, people admire superheroes, but people adore the heroes that are vulnerable. I may be butchering that, but
we'll find the exact.
We'll find the exact one, right? But what that quote meant is that it's hard to follow someone who is always perfect. Those are the people that annoy us. Like, yo, everything's not perfect. Can you not do that right now? But we do admire the people that we see as a hero, but they show us what's happening behind the scenes. And so I always think about, who are the people that we admire? Who are the people that we look up to? It's the people that we see as a hero, right? But they're not that superhero because they're showing us those flaws. We're just showing you the flaws, but we're still going to take the extra effort and do what we have to do regardless. And a person who does that really well in terms of like an artist standpoint is Drake. Whether you don't like Drake or not, he's one of the highest streaming artists of all time. And the reason that he is because he's willing to make fun of himself. He's willing to be vulnerable, but also he's very smart about what he does. And people look up to him because of that. And a lot of people are the same way. Even Goggins, if you guys follow him, like ridiculous mindset, but he also shows you, I used to be fat. I used to have depression, all that stuff. Like, that's what leads to that. And so the answer to your question is, what drives me is the impact. The SDR Chronicles was all about impact. I knew that I wanted to create something that my SDR self needed. I want to be the person that if I went back to a high school, they're like, that's who I want to be when I get to my late 20s, my 30s, 40s. That's who I want to model my life after. So I always know it's about impact, and everything I do maps back to that. And I'll say the people in the background that helped with that was one, my dad. My dad always told me to be humble and always told me, you know, seeking feedback, even though sometimes I was selfish about it for sure. And there are things that I go up against where I'm like, man, I don't want to do that. But he always put that in me. And two was, I talked to a lot of people in college that were informational interviews. I talked to the owner of the Atlanta Hawks. He responded to a cold email I sent him, which I don't even know why he even responded to it, but we had multiple conversations. He gave me really good advice. I talked to a couple of VPs at the NBA. I talked to people at Fox Sports, right? I was reaching out to people because I was like, I want to know what the mindset is. Are these people completely different from me? And I realized that the main difference was the mindset and how they go about their life. And they always were willing to put themselves in a position where someone else was at and send the elevator down. And lastly, it was Gary Vaynerchuk who really inspired me because of the way that he always communicated. And I'll never forget this. We were at an event, it was about a year and a half ago. It was called VoiceCon. So he wasn't supposed to show up to this. He shows up, everybody obviously goes right at him. He answered every single person's question, even though he had something to do and people were like, yo, Gary, you got to go. He's like, no, I got to answer everybody's question. He answered every single person's question. The key thing that he did that I was to this day, like blown away by, and what I try to do in all my conversations is he locked in with you. Like did not look at everything else that was going on, cameras all in his face, people trying to like grab him and stuff. And he would look at you in the eye and have a genuine conversation with you. And he did that for every single person. And so when I saw that, it's like, that was the model of what I wanted to be like, is despite everything that's going on, just having the perspective and being grateful about what's happening and being able to give the value that in the gifts that you've been given to give it to other people.
I love that. And I think it's a message we all need to hear all the time, but especially right now, because I think there's a lot of people struggling. I think the statistic today was that 30 million people are unemployed.
Nuts.
It's 10% of our population. Like, I don't even know what that is a percentage of our working population. It's a ridiculous amount. And it's way more than I've ever seen in my lifetime. That's for sure.
Hopefully as high as we'll ever see in our lifetimes, touch wood.
Well, I think it's just going to keep continuing for a bit. But I think thinking through the ways that we can make an impact and the things that really drive us, things that make the hard work a little easier, a little more rewarding, a little more meaningful, now is really the time to kind of take a step back and really think through those things and seize every opportunity that we kind of can to connect more deeply and to add value and to help in whatever small way we can. And so I appreciate the fact that, you know, you are really consistent about how you talk about these things.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all a journey.
It's all a journey. Real talk. So this has been amazing. The way we finish these episodes is we do a little rapid fire questions. So don't think too hard. They're just fun and kind of silly. And I feel like you're going to have some more thoughtful answers than a lot of the people that we talk to. So, well, this one always stumps people, and somehow I know you're going to have an answer for it. So to kick it off, what's your morning routine?
So my morning routine is immediately when I wake up, I am praying. I'm just a super grateful person. I can talk, I can walk, my family's healthy. There's no illness that I know of. Right? I'm able to I have a job right now. That's immediately what I do. I pray. I'm just thankful for what's going on. What do I believe in? I believe in God. So that's what I do. Next thing I do is I write down 3 things I'm grateful for. It's all about perspective. The reason I have a lot of energy and I'm motivated is because I'm grateful about what's happening. I'm grateful about my life. So I have to write those down and remind myself that. And it's little things. It could be like, I'm grateful I have internet. Like it's stuff like that we don't do. Like, I'm grateful I have a couch, you know, like I'm grateful that I can jump. Like, these are small things that people don't think about that most people don't have. And I took that seriously when I went to India. I just saw everything that was happening over there, and I was like, I'm just more grateful than I've ever been. And then once I do that, I do a workout normally. So 20, 30 minute, 40, whatever my trainer gives me. And then I do a 5-minute visualization exercise that's visualizing what my day is going to look like. Like, okay, I answered the questions right on the interview. I was able to be impactful. I was able to get all my thoughts across. I was able to listen to my clients on the call and ask the right questions. I was more concerned about the process than the outcome. I was able to interact with people on LinkedIn in a genuine way that didn't come off phony. Like, this is what I visualize, the success. Because if you don't visualize success, it's not going to happen. Actors do this. Artists do this. Why aren't we doing that as sales professionals? Why don't we do that as business professionals? I feel like it's a massive mistake. Then at that point, when I have all that written out, I write down the 3 things that I want to accomplish that day. And then also I write down my affirmation. So I'm happy and grateful of that. So I write positive affirmations to put myself in direct mode from the subconscious standpoint to tell myself, like, this is what I'm going to do. So if I say I'm happy and grateful of that, it's already accomplished. So my body is already actively moving in that direction towards that result. And so that's my morning routine. Normally I'll drink some water, I'll have some music going on, right? But for the most part, that is the morning routine. I follow that every single morning for the past 5 months, and fundamentally has changed my life.
And now my cup of coffee feels inadequate. Okay.
Fun fact, I've never drank coffee in my life.
Wow.
I don't even know how to respond to that.
It's the true fact.
I understand. And there's a part of me that's like, there's deep respect. And there's a part of me that's like, sweetie, let me make you a cappuccino. All right. Switching gears. Pick one person who's had a significant impact on your career.
Gary Vaynerchuk. It's not even a question.
All right. This one, I also think you're going to have a good answer for. What is your pump up song?
So my pump up song changes every time that my birthday happens.
Ooh,
so
what is it now?
So my pump up song now is 0 to 100 by Drake. And the reason I chose that song, there's a reason behind it, is he says, one of the key lyrics is, I'm only 27 and I'm only getting better, and I'm 27. So I hear that every morning to remind myself.
That's good. I like that.
I love it. All right. What's one thing you wish you'd learned earlier?
To listen. Actively listen. Terrible at it. I always think about, okay, this is what I'm going to say next. I know it's going to be great. And so, just listen to me. I'm just being real with you guys. Like that was literally what go through my head. Like, yo, okay, cool. You got to say, here comes the fire, right? So I wouldn't listen to what people were saying. And
I take back that whole thing about you being humble.
I'm being real. I'm just letting you guys know, like, that's how I would feel in personal and professional conversations sometimes. Not all the time, but most times I'd be like, all right, cool. I'm about to say something that's going to be great, right? And so I wouldn't listen to what people were telling me. And so I had to really change that when I was an SDR and I realized my active listening skills were terrible. So what I do now is I always try to find out what a unique word someone's saying in a conversation and then ask them more about that. So if someone said, oh, I had a terrible day, for example, I'd be like, okay, like what made it terrible? That's just a very easy example. But I always try to listen in conversations to figure out, okay, that was interesting. Like, tell me a little more about that. Let's dive deeper into that. So I've just become more curious about when someone's having that conversation with me about certain key elements, instead of being curious about the things that I care about, I'm curious about everything as a whole. And so I feel like I didn't really do a good job of that when I first started in sales. And I fundamentally, that's the main focus that I have, is increasing my active listening, because sometimes I can just get tunnel vision on like, all right, cool, this is what I really want to do.
Love it. What's your favorite sales book?
My favorite sales book. This is a good question. Honestly, my favorite sales book right now is Question-Based Selling. That book is phenomenal. I read it. My friend sent it to me a month and a half ago, and I read it and I was like, this is great. Like, sent it right when this all started. He's like, read this book. It'll help you. And it's helped me in sales cycles. It's helped me in conversations with other individuals. It's a fantastic read, and Question-Based Selling I'd put up there.
Awesome.
Perfect. All right. What's one way that someone could have been a better ally to you?
Better ally. I mean, could clarify in what way? Just in general?
Yeah. Like, so what's one way that someone could have reached out, sent the elevator back down for you?
Yeah, there was a time where I was depressed, like really depressed. I had gone through a really bad breakup. I had a best friend betray me. I didn't get the job that I wanted. And I just was at rift with my mom, and nothing bad. Just like we just had massive disagreements. So I wasn't in a great place in my life. And I was really trying to figure out myself because I thought I knew myself, but I really didn't. And I had my identity in other places. And I really wish during that time people would have reached out and just had a conversation with me. I feel like a lot of times people feel like, I mean, I guess I have the perception that I'm always just upbeat, positive, and fired up. But there are times where like, yeah, I have moments of sadness and I have moments of like, man, I really wish I would have done that, or et cetera. And not regrets, just things I think about and reflect because I'm a very introspective and deep person. And so I wish during that time when I was going through that phase of that breakup that someone would have reached out to me and just been like, yeah, I just want to just talk to you and just see how you're doing. Because I always felt like I had to reach out to other people and tell them how I felt. And people always sought advice from me, but no one really dove deep into like what was going in my head at that time. So that was one thing I wish someone would have been a better ally there.
Okay, so in light of that, or maybe not, what are some ways that you're working to be a better ally to others?
I proactively ask people what's on their mind. So a lot of the times as generalities, we ask people, how you're doing? How's your family? How's work? I ask people, what's on your mind?
Yeah.
That gets you the real answer. So I'll text my friends and I'll be like, yo, what's on your mind? And then they'll tell me, and then I'll figure out like, can I help? Can I just listen? Can I be a true ally here? Those are things that I'm doing proactive right now. And I've been blessed with more time. So I can do that with my parents. I can do that with my brothers. I can do that with my girlfriend. I can do that with my best friends. I can do it. We have a mastermind that we have. I can do that with those individuals to make sure that, you know, if there's any way I can help, I can do that. Because sometimes people feel like you're too busy and they don't want to reach out to you. So I proactively reach out to my friends and my loved ones to make sure that, no, I'm thinking about you. Like, what's on your mind? How can I help?
Love it.
I really love that. All right. Last but not least, and especially given you said you don't drink coffee, I'm super curious about this. What's your guilty pleasure after a bad day?
So normally what I'll do is I'll try to find out what concert's happening the upcoming weekend, and I book that concert, and I normally will get like VIP, and I'll tell everyone, yo, we're going to go to this concert and we're getting lit. That's literally, if I have a bad day, that is my go-to. Like, I don't really have like a lot of crazy things that I'll go do. But for me, I think a lot of people are suffering right now because they're used to escapism. So they're used to traveling. They're used to going out. They're used to doing all this stuff. For me, it's concerts. So I'm just like, yo, if I'm having a real bad day, let's just go book a concert and go do that, and let's get after it. But normally when I have a bad day, normally I go work more. So I'm like a workaholic. I'm probably an addict to some degree. Like, I'll just go work more if something bad's happening. But like, if that happens, I'm just going to go buy a concert ticket. Let's go do a concert on the weekend. And that's normally what I'll do.
Fabulous. This was a ridiculously awesome interview. You dropped lots of knowledge bombs, which we will be sharing with everyone. And also, I'm going to put you on the spot. You mentioned that you would be open to doing a video blog for the Other Side of Sales video or blog. So because May is our whole video month, I'm going to hold you to that, and we'll share it with our audience. We want to hear one more, I don't know, nugget of wisdom from Morgan Ingram. But this was fantastic. Everybody listening, go find Morgan on LinkedIn if you haven't already. Follow him, follow his content. It's brilliant. And if you like this episode, share it with your friends. Give us a review on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen. And of course, go to the Other Side of Sales website and take the State of Sales survey. We're trying to get as many people to take this survey so that we can have a better understanding of how our industry works and how there's room to improve it. And thank you so much for listening. And Morgan, thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.